Welcome, everyone. My last announcement, please get some food. It's delicious. Take a seat, and we're about to start the formal part of our program. Our musicians will be back. It's so good to see everyone here today. This turnout is a real tribute to the mediation program and to our dedicated volunteers. Thank you all. My name is Cheryl Cohen, and I'm the co-manager of the Bellevue Neighborhood Mediation Program, along with Marcy Reynolds. Where's Marcy? And our assistant, our program assistant, Natalie Daniels. My mother taught me the saying, make new friends, but keep the old. Some are silver, and looking around this room today, all of my friends here, all of you are gold. We're here to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the mediation program and to celebrate all of you volunteers who have contributed to the success since 1996. Hats off to all of you. And speaking of hats, you'll notice wonderful decorations on your table, little hats and big hats. And I want to thank my good friend Cheryl Kitashima for doing all the table decorations and for all this wonderful food that you see behind us. Where's Cheryl? Also, while we're talking about hats, I do want to acknowledge Ted Van Dyken, our own graphics designer, who did all the banners that you see here, the testimonials that you see above. He did all the invitations, the save the dates, all the little pins and all the little pads that you have. Ted has been just fantastic. I hope you get an opportunity to come and look at the collage that he put together. Natalie and I put together about 200 pictures, and Ted did a great job of putting them around this post. So take a look and see if you can find yourself, especially if you've been here for 20 years, you will find yourselves. Volunteers, you're the ones who have made this neighborhood mediation program happen. It's the relationships that you have encouraged with the neighbors who call in through telephone conciliation, coaching, problem solving, mediation. And all of this has strengthened the whole Bellevue community. Our mission is to enhance the problem solving capacity of the Bellevue community, and it's up to you and your success that you have allowed this to happen. Over my 20 years here with the program, I've seen all kinds of milestones with our volunteers. We've had weddings, we've had births, we've had passings, we've had graduations, we've had grandchildren, and we all become one big family. The bonds that develop between our volunteers through their volunteering, through their trainings, through their camaraderie, is what really strengthens the community as well. So again, I thank you. Today's program is to honor you. Our speakers today will highlight some of the stories, the impacts, the successes of our program. And at the end of our program, I do encourage you to stay for the delicious cake that our council member, Mr. Lee, will cut, and to stay and enjoy some socializing and friendship. I would like to take a few minutes to recognize some special guests here today. Please welcome our council members, former mayor and current council member, Conrad Lee. Good for standing, Claudia, because I would like to acknowledge former mayor and current King council member, Claudia Balducci. Say that again, Julie. Former Mayor Chuck Mosier, all the way from Wenatchee. Council Member Lynn Robinson. Okay. Oh, Councilman Slatter, sorry. Thank you. East Side Community Council Member Steve Kasner. Please welcome our Bellevue City Manager, Brad Miyake, and our Deputy City Manager, Kate Behrens. Yay! I do want to acknowledge my bosses, Chris Salomon, who came on about 5 years ago, and for the past 5 years has been such a staunch supporter of the mediation program. We can't thank you enough, Chris. My other boss in the back is Dan Stroh, who's the planning director. And Dan has been the supervisor, the manager of this mediation program for 20 years. So without you, Dan, we wouldn't exist, and thank you for all your support and all your wisdom through these years. I'd also like to thank our quintet, our Bellevue Youth Symphony Orchestra quintet, who will charm us again at the end of the program. Thank you for serenading us. And thank you to the Party Planning Committee. Nancy Codoni-Lee, Julie Ellenhorn is here, Cheryl Kitashima, Natalie Daniels. Thank you for putting this all together. So I would like to start the program by introducing our own mayor, John Stokes, who will come up and say a few words.
Okay. Thanks, Cheryl. It is really delightful to be here today on behalf of the City Council and welcome you. And what a great venue for this event. Every time we decorate it up like this, it gets better and better, it seems. It's just amazing. We're here to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the Bellevue Neighborhood Mediation Program. And as a former attorney, did a lot of litigation, I understand mediation. This is really cool mediation. I like that. Today you'll hear both of the history and on-the-ground stories of the program directly from the founders, the staff, the council members, and the volunteers who have made this program the special service that has been for over the past 20 years. You, the volunteers, make Bellevue great. You represent the unique identities of our diverse neighborhoods, and you're the ones who are educating our citizens on how to resolve conflicts, person to person, neighbor to neighbor, without legal intervention. And again, that's a tough thing to do, and you're doing it very well. You're here because you care about your city and your neighborhood. You work to empower others to talk to each other, to manage conflicts and be good neighbors. And as Councilmember Lee and I were talking about this, you do so not only just between people who speak the same language and have the same culture, but you do it with people who speak different languages and different cultures. We're all people underneath, but that's a tough job and you do it well. Your commitment to public service is exceptional. To be a volunteer mediator, as you know, you've attended 20 hours of conciliation training, accept a weekly 3-hour volunteer shift for 6 months, coach neighbors on the phone. I see you walk past the office there, and often, all the time, somebody's in there talking to somebody. You've attended a basic 40-hour mediation training, entered a practicum for a year observing mediations, co-mediating, and then lead mediating. It is indeed a rigorous program, but it produces fantastic results. And you also participate in quarterly in-service trainings and various workshops for continuing education. What a huge commitment to time and skills for the benefit of your community. And I know it's made a great impact, a positive impact on your life as well, and that's a win-win situation for all of us, and it really is appreciated. Many of you have been in this program for 20 years and have put in countless volunteer hours. Last year alone, volunteers contribute over 3,000 hours. Our mediation program operates with a very small staff, our co-managers, Marcia Beck-Reynolds and Cheryl Cohen, and assistant Natalie Daniels. To give them a round of applause. And the rest is really up to you, the volunteers. Hats off to all of you. I, again, really appreciate being here tonight and know that you're a huge part of what makes this city special. There are not many cities who have a program like this, and I think we're particularly honored tonight. It's still This is daylight savings time, so it's really not quite night yet. With someone who is very involved in this and who has been part of the vision for the city in many, many ways in the past that we're still working on and creating new visions that build on the past. And that is Chuck Mosier, former mayor of the city of Bellevue, and very involved in this program. He's going to tell you a little bit about how we got here, and very, very pleased to have him here. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And it's great to see a number of you, all of those involved in mediation. The mediation actually started out back in 1995. And at that time, I was running for council, but involved in a number of different projects. And one of the projects was I was working with the Bellevue Downtown Association, looking at not dispute resolution, but basically a variety of ways of working with business disputes. And initially we looked at business disputes, but then when I got on the council in 1996, I discussed mediation with then city manager Steve Bauer. And Steve was very interested in this and extremely helpful, and it helps to work with somebody with the money and with the staff to get things going. So Steve worked with people in the city staff, and the code compliance section, and it seemed like a natural fit, so Steve actually got things going, and I give him tremendous credit for that. I like the way that the code compliance people had a very clever way of getting people to work with mediation. If a code compliance case came before the city, then they'd say, well, we can get around to that in several weeks from now, but if you'd like to have something done right away, talk to the mediation group. I thought that was a very clever idea, and it worked quite well. Later, in 2004, after being on the council, I moved over to East Wenatchee and got on the board of the Wenatchee Valley Dispute Resolution Center. So again, it was a matter where it was a relatively new idea over there, but I worked with that group and they expanded, and I helped work with Chelan County to get permanent financing for the group. It wasn't a really nice relationship with the city like you have here, which works out extremely well, but we were able to get the financing from the court system, and it's working well over there too. Now, the other thing about dispute resolution or mediation is you've been involved in the cases and you spent huge amounts of time on that. I actually took the initial training, 40 hours of training, and that really has helped me working on the Bellevue City Council. It's helped me now as I'm on the Growth Management Hearings Board for the state of Washington, and use those skills on that particular job too. I mean, the idea of open-ended questions, the idea of good listening skills, of non-threatening verbal behavior. Of course, that's nice if you have your politicians not using that kind of language, and unfortunately, they could use some training at the national level now. And I think the mediation training would be useful for them and its skills in working with people on a national level. So I've taken the course, I've used the skills, and unfortunately I haven't actually been a mediator. We have times various members of the board can be called on to work with mediation. I haven't actually done it. I kind of like the position of being the decision maker, both on the council as mayor and on the growth board. But it definitely looked to the idea that if you get into mediation, you're getting to a win-win solution. And too much in our legal cases, you have the final answer, but it's win-lose. So I actually encourage people to get involved in mediation. I encourage people to come before our board to be involved in mediation because we like to see those win-win solutions. So in any case, I am happy to see all of you wonderful volunteers that have put in so much time for such a great effort. I hear you're expanding to schools and a variety of different mediation situations, and I think that really shapes the community and makes it a better place for everyone. So I salute you. I salute the Bellevue Mediation Program on its 20 years.
I especially thank Chuck because we were neighbors in Bellevue 20 years ago. And Chuck came to my door and he said, Cheryl, you're a therapist. How would you like to get involved, be a volunteer in a new program that the city is starting called mediation? I had actually never heard of this mediation. It was Chuck and Dick Eberly, a well-known mediator in our community that were my neighbors. And so I attended the first 40-hour basic mediation training by my mentor, Ann McBroom, who is here today. And I have volunteered for 10 years, and then I've been working here for 10 years. So there goes my 20 years. And thank you, Chuck. I would like to introduce now the former managers of the Neighborhood Mediation Program. Ann McBroom started the program back in 1996. Why don't you come up, Ann? And Ann will speak, and then we have Regina Lyons, who is here. Regina came on in 2000 with Andrew Kidda. Came on also in 2000. And I came on with Andrew. I've been working with Andrew for 15 years. He unfortunately left our program, but we brought on a new co-manager, Marcy, who's with us today. I'd also like to give a little shout out to the assistants because Kathleen Nichols, who is here today, also began with Ann in 1996. Gwen Jones is here all the way from Montana. Thank you, Gwen. She left us in 2013, unfortunately, but we have Natalie Daniels who took over. We also have Claire Lyons here today, who was a program manager on and off with Regina as well. So I thank you all for coming here today, and I can't wait to hear what Ann has to say.
I'm actually going to stand up. That's all right. Hello. I'm so glad to see people who were here when I was here. I used to jokingly say, this is a Jean-Paul Sartre no exit volunteer experience, and seems to be holding true. So, so good to see you all and be part of a 20th anniversary. So I was the first program manager for the King County, or for the Bellevue Mediation Program. Did the startup pieces of it. And really remember just this huge, tremendous support from Steve Bauer, the city manager, who was very interested in the program, Chuck Mosier, who was really interested in the program, and Conrad Lee. So all of you are early kind of supporters and really consistent supporters of the Bellevue Mediation Program. If I mess up and say King County Mediation Program, it's because that's where I work now. So my directions, my marching orders was build a program to build capacity within the citizens of the city of Bellevue. And that was the #1 charge. The #2 charge was keep it at the lowest possible level. So if you can handle this over the phone, if you can handle simple misunderstandings, it doesn't need to go to mediation necessarily. So that meant a conciliation program. And make sure that it's easy to volunteer. So be open nights, make it available for people who work, and make sure you have a diverse mediation cadre, which at the time there wasn't diversity in the mediation cadre. So it's was throwing down kind of a gauntlet for us to do that. And don't start until you have a computer case management system built. And you have what you need and you have everything in place. So I was a busy little bee, and I just got right to it, and within 3 months I had trained our first cadre of folks. Some of them I think might be here today, and I might miss some, but Cheryl for sure was in the first cadre, first training of conciliation and mediation. Jackie Jackson, I was hoping I would see her. I don't see her. Steve Jutton, Steve Dennis, Barb Taniga, and others I can't remember, but I remember really well. And then the people that I see here today, Linda Schulman and others who were really involved all along. And I see your face, and I know you, right? Who are you? I'm like, hi. Okay, great. Good to see you. Within 3 months, we had the council pass an ordinance to let us be a dispute resolution center, so there would be protections for both the volunteers and the people who came to mediation. That happened very, very quickly and with the support of council. We had the forums, we had the outreach material, we had great support in the then planning department with Dan Stroh at that time, and a lot of help getting things started with IT. Just different departments really came through. It didn't hurt us that we had the kind of hammer of the city manager who really wanted everything to be done before we started. And so I was so proud. I mean, I was so speedy, so fast, and I went up to tell Steve Bauer that I was going, we were accepting cases, and he was like crestfallen because I hadn't kept him in the loop at all. And at that point, really started kind of working with him. I went on ahead without him. It was like his child went out into the world with no parent in tow. So after that, we kind of kept him in the loop a little bit better. And in the early days, a lot of our kind of business came from the strong support of Steve. All the code compliance cases came to us first for like about a month. And Cheryl probably remembers making cold calls to people saying, hi, we're the Bellevue Mediation Program, and they sent your code compliance case to us, and a lot of fury around that because people really couldn't understand why they were being asked to solve their own problems. So we quickly changed that and made sure that we weren't doing the cold calls, and that there was a little bit of thinking before we got the cases about which ones might be good. And then we also we had a couple kind of starts and stops. We started a victim offender mediation program that towards the end of my time here, probably which was 2000, probably in about 1998, we trained all the police officers. We tried really hard to get the city attorney's office on board. The police officers were not too keen on the idea. They called it VORP. They thought it was like a vitamin from Space Age or something. They were just like not very keen on the idea, although that idea is now coming back and really becoming very much a part of how we do business and how we maybe are looking to do business with restorative justice in the justice system. So they may get to revisit that. And then one of our biggest successes, I think, and the most fun, and as I look at these banners up here, you can really see how it's touched a lot of people's lives, was the parent-teen mediation program started with Kathy Goldman. She's not here today, or she would be talking about it. She had such a passion and so much creative energy to put into it. We did a basic mediation training. We were able to get a couple young people there, and they kind of put up with the training with the adults, and then afterwards we asked them if they would help us recruit more youth, and they said, yeah, but that training, you've got to change it. So they helped. That was Julia. Julia's here. Yeah. Okay. So Julia was the person, and Marika. Is Marika here? No. Oh, good. It's so good to see you. And they really went to work and helped us design a new training. And it was great. After that, we had so much fun with the youth. They were so talented. We had adults and youth mixed, and we did some really, really fun things. And I still remember one quote. We did this exercise. One quote is like, we asked the youth to ask any questions that they want of the adults, and we asked the adults to ask any questions they wanted to of the youth. And they all worked together on the questions. And I remember the one question from the youth. I still remember it and think about it all the time. how come when you get old you cut your hair off? So I had my hair down to the middle of my back based on that quote until about 2 months ago. Anyway, they were amazing. It was so much fun training with them. And with that's kind of the highlights of what I remember about being here. And of course, really remembering the volunteers and sitting and talking with people. I remember there was one person that I enjoyed talking with a lot. His name was Shams. I don't know if Shams is here. Is Shams here? Is he still part of the program? Kinda. He was one of the first people I talked to about the Islamic faith. He was from Bangladesh, kind of from Pakistan via Bangladesh, and talked about the Muslim culture and really gave me some amazing insights to that and that I wouldn't have had otherwise, and has carried me through all this tragedy and polarization that has occurred in the last 15 years, knowing that I've had that conversation with him. So we just had wonderful, wonderful conversations in our little office with the people who came to volunteer, learned a lot about them, and enjoyed them so much. So thank you for carrying on the tradition. Remember, it's the No Exit volunteer experience, and I'm going to pass this on to Regina.
I was a very early volunteer here and then was fortunate enough to work here for 5 years. And about 6 months ago, Cheryl was planning ahead for the party, and she emailed all of us and said, well, this big anniversary is coming up, and when you think about the anniversary, what you did at 10 years, what we should be doing at 20 years, what should we do? What are your ideas? And I thought, and really only one word came to my mind, and that's the people. It's all of you. It's all about the people you serve, and you who provide that service. So I'm curious to see, if you were here 20 years ago, will you stand? If you were here 15 years ago, stay standing. If you were here 15 years ago, would you stand? A few more. If you were here 10 years ago, please stand. If you were here 5 or more years ago, stay standing. Please stand. And then the babies of the program would be all the rest of you, I'm sure. Yeah. So when I look around at all the talent in the room, it was just a wonderful time to be here and to be working with people, not just one-on-one, but in the classroom situation. Dan Stroh was my boss, and he took my first 40-hour mediation training, which made me very nervous, but it made me perform, I hope. And one of the things that's true about the people that take the trainings here and provide the service is that you must get into, at times, a very vulnerable place as you share experiences and you peel back what conflict means to you, what it's been for you, how that plays for you as a practitioner. And people are very courageous about stepping up and stepping into that space. And I think that really creates a level of intimacy that then makes going forward something that makes all of us keep coming back. So I salute all of the people in the room, and I'm grateful to have been a part of the group. And now I will pass you on to Andrew Kidda.
Hello there. It's so great to see so many friendly faces and people that I've known for years and just admired and enjoyed. So it's really, really nice to be here on this special day. It was a huge pleasure and a very important part of my life to be here at the Bellevue Neighborhood Mediation Program. So many kind, smart people who stepped forward, people who wanted to make a difference in the world and contribute to a happier community. And what an honor to be part of that. Many of you have touched my life. I spent 15 years co-managing the Bellevue Mediation Program. And wow, did the program grow and change and evolve during that time. My goodness. We collaborated with the planning department on a broad array of facilitations of large neighborhood issues. In fact, the very first one that I worked on was the Lake Hills shopping center, and Claudia was one of the citizens at that point who stepped in and was part of that group. And I think it worked out, and it took, I think, 10 years, but they finally started building it. It's built now, yes. Yeah. Yes, there are buildings. Always, there is always work to be done, isn't there? But in addition to those large neighborhood discussions, which revolved around an incredible variety of subjects, I had one on a methadone clinic and homeless facilities and all kinds of stuff. Very fascinating and important discussions. Our teens who'd been doing the parent-teen work got involved in truancy facilitations and facilitating intergenerational conversations and a variety of other stuff like that. We started mediating foreclosure disputes. My gosh, that was a whole new departure and a complex, and I think in the end, although it was sort of painful to do that work, to be honest, I think it was important. I think it may have helped people stay in their homes, for one, which is invaluable. And I think it may have humanized a few of the lawyers working for the banks. I don't know. I have to revisit them later on. But, you know, they weren't used to, you know, sitting next to the people and having to actually talk to them. You know, that was a big deal. And we trained tons of people. We trained people in the community. We trained city staff in principled negotiation, nonviolent communication, all kinds of stuff I hope has been very useful, and I believe it has. I want to express my appreciation to Dan Stroh and Chris Salamoni, who allowed all of these kind of wild departures into new areas, and not wild, we were good, but ambitious. But you guys allowed and encouraged us and supported us along the way, so thank you. And I also want to express my appreciation for the wise city leaders, especially Chuck and Steve, who had the vision of having a mediation program in a city. Very, very few cities have a program like this, and it's a testament to Bellevue's enlightened vision of what city life, civic life can be, that this exists. And I believe that some of the most important work that the program has to do is yet to come. And I want to take a minor diversion here. As many of you know, I left this position to become an activist in climate change. And let me tell you, I didn't do it for the pay raise. I did it because I have a sense of urgency around that issue. And alas, I'm here to tell you that the news isn't good in the world. The United Nations estimates that already 150,000 people a year are dying as a result of what climate change is bringing. The forests way in the north in Canada are on fire in the spring. Crazy. Large sections of the Great Barrier Reef are bleached. Irreparably bleached. They're not coming back. We've got flooding. We've got temperature records being broken all over the world. The crisis has already started in a lot of places in the world. And unfortunately, Bellevue will not be exempt from the problems in the next decades. Some of them will be just because a lot more people are going to be moving here, you know. It's a wonderful place to live, and it's going to be relatively safe for quite a while. But the city's going to have to evolve. The city's going to have to evolve. We're going to have to put a lot of effort into redesigning our physical infrastructure over the next years. Housing has been already a huge issue and will continue to be a really big issue for the city. Transportation, water systems, the physical infrastructure will need to be rebuilt, as it always does, but in a particular way with these new constraints. But I also believe that the social infrastructure will need to evolve. We are going to need to continue to improve how our citizens and leaders resolve conflicts. We're going to have to figure out how to integrate all of those interests of the people who move here and who are connected to this region, because it's a global world now, right? It's a global world. We have people with connections all over. How to keep our hearts open in the face of the struggles that are happening here and all around us. And I think the mediation program can play a very central role in keeping that social infrastructure moving forward, alive, and compassionate. And so that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you to the three of my favorite mentors, without whom I would not have the same skills and abilities to carry on this program. Well, you've heard a little and a lot about the parent-teen mediation, but I do now ask Julia Turlinchamp and Pam Orbach and Galit Arad-Trutner to come up. I do want to talk a little about that program. Would you like to sit up here? Well, Pam Orbach is heard about our mediation program through her own daughter, Tessa, who took the parent-teen mediation program in 2002. And she was so excited about it that Pam got excited and thought, well, if my daughter does that, I should do that too. And Pam has been with us ever since. Kathy Goldman started the program, followed by Gwen, and then Pam and Galit decided that they had such passion and dedication to this program that once Gwen left, they said, we are going to carry this on, and they have been totally dedicated for the past 3 years to this program. Galit started in 2004. She took the parent-teen training here and has been with us ever since. Together, this team of dynamite mediators have partnered with Eastside Pathways, Jubilee Reach, the Bellevue School District, teachers, parents, students. They do truancy workshops. They do all kinds of communication workshops, and they'll tell you all a little more about that. I do want to welcome Julia Turlinchamp, who took one of, I believe it was, Julia, the first parent-teen training that we had with Kathy in 1998. And stayed with the program through her high school at the international school. And since then, Julia has taken on the world. She currently works for our current governor, and will tell you a little about how her mediation skills have evolved to allow her to work for the governor of our state. I do want to give a little shout out and a little gift to Pam and Galit. And what we have for you here are talking sticks. Now, the talking stick has been used for centuries by many American Indian tribes as a means of just and impartial hearing. The talking stick was commonly used in council circles to designate who had the right to speak. When matters of great concern came before the council, the leading elder would hold this talking stick and begin the discussion. When he finished what he had to say, he would then pass this talking stick on to whoever wished to speak after him, and on it went. And the stick was then passed back to the leading elder for safekeeping. So we in the mediation program are pleased to be passing on our talking sticks to Pam and Galit for safekeeping as well. They model the process. They have tremendous respect for feelings and needs, And they are currently using these sticks in restorative practices, and maybe they will talk a little more about the direction that they're going in as well. So please welcome Pam, Galit, and Julia.
I'll take my stick, or her stick. Whoa, okay. I'm shaking here. She's the speaker in front of the big crowds. I'm the one-on-one. Okay, been around for 12 years. I'm so humbled to be here speaking in front of all of you. Our program is, so much was said about our volunteers and how amazing this environment is to be in, which is why people come back to meetings, because it's so enriching to be with people, like-minded people who think win-win when they look at stuff. It's rare and hard to come by. But I want to talk about the people that we meet in the mediation, and those are, I'm shaking. I'll take a breath. People that we meet in the mediation, and these are the people that we can't tell their stories because it's confidential. But what we do see is huge aha moments and how this group of people impacted huge amounts of people outside of here. And I think that's the heart and the things that enrich us as well when we see this aha moment when parents suddenly sees their teens for the first time and go, whoa, wow, you're stressed. Didn't realize that that's what's going on for you. Or that the kids look at the parents and go, oh, so you can't make all the decisions in your life. You have things that you need to do too that you don't like. Not just us have homework, you have to do stuff too that you don't like. And so these moments that people find their ways to one another again and again is why we come back and do this. And it's true between neighbors, and it's true between families, and it's true when we do the conversation workshops that we've done many throughout the past few years, where people go, wow, we didn't know that. And looking at the future in this immigrating community, because we immigrate if we came here, which I did, but also immigrated if we were born here because things have changed so much. In the mediation room, we see the flex between the kids that were born here and the parents that came from other places. And we bridge that gap small. It doesn't look like reality TV, but it's small, but it's expanding. So here's to expanding connections and healing. Yes, I said it.
I have the stick. So let me just check I got this correct. I heard how moved you are and how much you value the intimacy that is created in the mediation room and how much it contributes to the families that come into us. And I'm guessing that it really meets your need to contribute. And I want to talk a little about the teens. Our program wouldn't be where it is without teens. And the humbling experience that has been for me to realize that as we grow older, we think that our lives growing up have given us a lot of experience and that we know what's real and what's true. And the more I work alongside teens, the more I actually realize the less I know and the more valuable their wisdom is and their understanding of the world. And it took me more than half of my life. I mean, let me just say, it took me 50 years, let me just say that. It took me 50 years to learn to really develop a compassion to open to the needs of other people fully, and to realize that we're all victims. Even when we're perpetrators because we're first victims. And to really be in a place of being able to want to not end up in compromise, but in rather than even win-win, and holding everybody's needs and finding solutions that are going to support everyone. And I'm just blown away by, you'll hear a little here about the impact of this training when you're 15 years old. So to be able to get that awareness and open to the possibilities. We have a teen in our current group two teens who currently went away to do a whole nonviolent communication retreat on Vashon Island a couple weeks ago, and they're just going off to college with all of that in their toolbox. So I came not because my kid raved about the program, but because I saw what it did for her. And I saw the impact that it had on how I brought up my succeeding children. And I am so grateful to Cheryl and Gwen and Andrew and Marcy now and Natalie, who've been part of this for the 7-8 years that I've been part of it. It has literally changed my life and everyone that I've touched through doing this work. So I'm ready to pass the talking piece. Thank you so much, all of you, for doing this work and for doing this training, because everyone you go out to, you touch and they touch, going on from the experience they've had with you. So thank you.
Wonderful stories. I hope you can hang in for a few more stories because they're just wonderful. You please feel free to continue to eat. But I would like to introduce now 2 neighborhood mediators. You've heard from the teens. I'd like to bring up Peter Sugarman and Rhonda Yonker to tell a little stories from their perspective, what it's like to be an adult mediator. Peter started with us in 2010, and when I asked him how he had heard about the program, he said it was through a personal experience with mediation, and that intrigued him enough to want to come and conciliate and mediate. And Peter's been conciliating. We usually tell people it's a 6-month commitment, and 6 years later, we can't get rid of Peter. He's just an incredible asset to our program, and he takes on the most challenging cases. And today he's going to talk about one of his stories. Rhonda has been an incredible asset as well. Rhonda is a true, what I call, Bellevue community member. She actually lives the motto that we have for our software called Happy Neighbors. She really wants to better her neighborhoods. And today she's going to tell a couple of stories about what she's done with her mediation tools to enhance her neighborhood conflicts. Okay, take it away.
Thank you, Cheryl. I'm going to share one of the more recent cases that I've been working on. And it's a bit complicated. Just a little introduction. We refer to the parties as P1 and P2, and P1 is typically the person who makes the initial call. So I'm just going to get into the story, and then I'll share a bit about how it's impacted me. So to begin, P2 owns the house on a corner lot that has been in her family for over 50 years. She grew up there and has fond memories of planting lilac bushes along the driveway by the garage. And her daughter and son-in-law live in the house now. They all love the beauty and fragrance of those lilacs in the spring. The original property was subdivided, giving her neighbor a 14-foot wide easement for a driveway sandwiched between 2 other driveways. That middle driveway was never paved. P1 owns that driveway, and she bought the property about 4 years ago. She rents it out. Her tenant has complained that the driveway is so dusty and narrow, and those bushes make it hard to pass through without scratching her car door. P1 hired a contractor to pave the driveway with concrete and wanted to alert P2 of her plans. The property description clearly shows that the boundary runs between the 2 driveways and even cuts through the garage. And she was upset that someone had moved the boundary stakes and she had to pay for another survey. So she's getting very angry about this loss of the property line. P1 and P2 have never talked to each other. It's always been through intermediaries. So P1 talked to P2's son-in-law, who lives in the house, about laying the concrete along the property line so there'd be no mistake about where that line was. She's going to have it laid in concrete now. And those bushes had to go. The son-in-law alerted his mother-in-law about the situation and how unreasonable and passive-aggressive P1 was in making those demands. P2 refused to directly talk to P1, and she also requested a copy of the original subdivision from the archives department at City Hall. She couldn't believe the boundary cut through her garage, and if it did, she was going to claim adverse possession. So things had really been heating up here. I went back and forth between the two parties for weeks while we waited for those archived documents to arrive. Finally, they arrived, and after a lot of talking with both parties, especially with P2, she finally agreed to mediate. And when I told P1, she said, oh, you know, the contract couldn't wait any longer. We're going to be pouring concrete next week. So if we want to mediate, it has to be this Friday. And I explained, no, we can't do that. But she's going to, if she could mediate, but if regardless, she's going to go ahead and do it, whether she can mediate or not. And I explained the timing wasn't going to work for mediation, and would she be willing to talk directly to P2 herself? And reluctantly, she agreed, because she's had a lot of anger about P2 never giving her a phone number, never contacting her. She's never talked to her, and she really was felt disrespected. And I offered to coach her on how she might approach the conversation, helping her to see the situation from P2's perspective, including the sensitive nature of the lilac bushes and the garage. Well, they did. They contacted each other. They arranged a meeting with the contractor on the property that weekend. And at the meeting, they agreed to relocate the lilac bushes out of harm's way and limit the width of the concrete driveway to protect the integrity of the garage. And then so through conciliation, we were able to diffuse a really volatile situation, and they are actually able to work it out themselves without the formal mediation. And so it's a success of really the power of this training that we've had here at the mediation has really been astounding, and you can see the results in something like that.
There's no topping that. There's no topping that. Thank you. I'll set that there. No, mine are very mundane, I think, in comparison. I will confirm what Galit said earlier about Bellevue being a city in flux and change and lots of different things going on and different people. And my specific little neighborhood has lots of new big homes going up and lots of new people moving in and people trying to meet their new neighbors. And so there have been some conflicts recently in my little pond. Actually, unusually, there were 3 such little issues in my little pond in the past few weeks, and they got resolved very nicely. It was kind of the mediator's trifecta in terms of nasty things, in my opinion: barking dogs, loud music, and an unkept yard. And it was neighbor over here, and it was my neighbor over here, and it was my neighbor over there. And the beauty of this is they all got resolved, and they got resolved very nicely and very simply and very quietly. And I really didn't think much about it until I had company over this last weekend. And they were all talking about different things going on, and so I just told these little stories about the problems that came up and how they were resolved, and 2 of the people said, "That sounds really manipulative." And I have to admit, I kind of recoiled a little bit. And my background is sales, so I don't recoil from much, but I kind of took exception to that. And it got me thinking, though, and reflecting a little bit about that negative word and the connotation relative to this very positive outcome in 3 different instances. The outcomes were all positive, and everyone left feeling good. So I did a little digging, as Cheryl for sure knows. I'm a word nut. Cheryl and Andrew actually bought me this really cool book, I'll give it a plug, called Eats, Shoots, and Leaves. It's a fabulous book. Anyway, it prompted me to look up the word manipulate. And I was quite astonished to see what that word, where it comes from. It actually comes from French, and Cheryl will give a better pronunciation, as would Andrew, of the word handful, or M-A-N-I-P-U-L-E. And it means handful, and in Latin, it's also very similar, and it means to fill. And the first time we actually see the word manipulate in print comes up in 1826, and here's what they say about manipulation: skillful handling. I quite liked that. That resonated. So the common understanding of mediation today is an intervention in a dispute with the goal to resolve. Lots of people have different opinions about what mediation is, or they have misconceptions about what mediation is. I was at a meeting a couple of weeks ago. It was with a group of people from the University of Washington. They all wanted us to go around the table and say what it is that we did. And I said, I mediate for the King County Dispute Resolution Center and City of Bellevue. I had 3 people come up to me afterwards and say, oh, arbitration. I would never do that again. Okay, well, it's not arbitration, it's mediation. Somebody else thought it was kind of therapy. And so these ideas that are out there about mediation, and what I can say after having done 300 and some odd mediations now is that while people would like to think that mediation by its definition is dividing down the middle or halving, there are very few things that you're going to have. You didn't have a driveway, and you couldn't have the lilac bushes, and you couldn't divide a garage down the middle. So there's not much in the way of money or children or fences or trees or the barking dogs in my neighborhood or the loud music or the unkept yard that we could have. But it's understanding how you're going to work with those issues of emotions and those issues of people's interests in order to find that place where you can somewhat meet in the middle. And skillful handling is indeed involved. I wouldn't call it manipulation, I would call it skillful handling. So whatever you call it, I am reminded frequently, directly and indirectly, that the impact of resolving these conflicts with respect and clarity, with acknowledgement and grace, is truly important. It has a ripple effect in our communities. It can have a ripple effect in our families. Helping people realize their interests and how to achieve them is truly a gift that we can give them. And helping them resolve their conflicts to their mutual satisfaction and skillful handling is in great demand, and I feel that it's really rewarding for those of us who are fortunate to do this work. So the impact on me, I think, is gratitude. I'm very grateful that I get to do this work and that I work with the people that I do here and in Seattle, because they are truly an outstanding group of people. Thank you.
Okay, I know you're anxious to get to our cake, so I'd like to call up my colleagues, Natalie Daniels and Marcy McReynolds, to come up here. Natalie started as a volunteer with our program in 2009 and took on the job here as we call program assistant. She's well overqualified for program assistant in 2013. And she's just been an incredible asset to our program. I know Marcy calls her radar because she's always getting to things way before Marcy ever thinks of things. Natalie is going to be going abroad this summer, so we thought we'd give her a little gift to help her on her travels this summer. She will be back in September, but I can tell you we will sorely miss her for the 2 months. Marcy joined me in October, so she's been here now for 8 months and brings unbelievable creativity and such nuance to the program. So I'm thrilled to be able to work with her. And Marcy will, for her passport, Marcy will give some closing remarks, and our council member Lee will help us cut the cake.
Well, I was going to do a little interpretive dance about mediation, manipulation, or fine-tuning, and I actually have the musicians lined up to do such a thing, but we are moving on. You want to see an interpretive dance of mediation? We don't need to do it. I wanted to, well, first of all, just to say just a couple of things about what we're doing in the program now. You know, the program, everybody's done so many things that have layered, that have created steps for things to develop to where they are now. And the community has changed a great deal. And the fact that mediation is in the planning department means that we're also partnering with economic development, and we have all these businesses coming here. So we're now looking at helping startups, who 65% of the reason startups fail is internal conflict. So guess what? We have some business. And we're also looking at the fact that we have such a culturally diverse community, and that sometimes our practices really don't work for some of the cultures, particularly the more collective cultures. So we're actually mining the data from years past to see, you know, what worked and what didn't work, and looking at adapting our practices to be more culturally sensitive. But most important is the through line of this program for the past 20 years, a person who was a volunteer and a co-manager for the past 10 years. And I wanted to thank you, Cheryl. And this is from everybody. And I guess I'll let you, this is a graduation hat. Our theme today is hats off. And so this is, I'll let you open it. But Cheryl, thank you. This is, thank you. So we had a local artist make a scarf, because Cheryl likes to wear scarves around her neck. And the scarf, you will see. Cheryl worked very hard on the logo with Ted, who was here. It changed many times. I know you can't imagine that. But that this has the hats from the logo on it. Oh, isn't that beautiful? And thank you, Cheryl. Thank you. Thank you, such a grace. And now I wish to introduce our present councilman and former mayor, Mr. Lee, who is going to cut the cake, and he has asked to say a few words.
Thank you. I know we are running late, but since I've served for over 20 years, I figure you can listen to me for a few more minutes. First of all, thank you. I want to thank Chuck Mosier for coming back to talk about the history, what he started. Thank you. And also, it's great to have the current mayor to be here to talk about what we are doing as a department. And as we all know, things change. Conflict will always exist. But this is a great program that, Bellevue has many wonderful programs, but there are very few that are very sort of unsung, but great influence on the fabric of what we are, people are, this society is. I think Andrew addressed it. It's the social infrastructure that really need to be paid attention. And we don't know what the results are going to be. This is going to be good, bad, there's no split the baby in the middle. But it's the process you're working with, the mediation process. It's really bringing people together and build relationships through communication, through the culture that we have may be different, but we know how to communicate. We know how to get to the point that we all emotionally are satisfied. I think it's very well said. We heard the stories that are told, the experiences we all have. We see the transition from the beginning, when the program first started, to including teens, parents, young people. And now, we're including the diverse community. Very challenging. But these are the things Bellevue has set up to do because the vision of the people that have been with us for all these years, and also the support that has continued to go on. Now what we need to is look into the future. That's what we are here today. is making sure that we understand the importance, of communication, bringing people together, coming to the satisfaction of mental. So I really am very honored to be here, and I've been trying, the mediation team has been trying to recruit me for the last 20 years. And so I think I'm going to really think about it, and I might just join you starting from this year. Thank you. So thanks again, and we'll enjoy the cake. And we have the cake and then eat it too.
Here,
we go right in the middle. How's that?